The Mafia boss placed his credit card into the woman's shaking hand. "No limit," he said quietly. "Buy whatever you want." The homeless woman looked down at the card, then back at him. Her hair was matted, her coat torn, her shoes soaked through. She hadn't been inside a store in months. People nearby slowed their steps, waiting to see what she'd do. She swallowed hard and nodded. Inside the grocery store, the Mafia boss watched from a distance. She passed the hot food counter, skipped the clothes aisle, ignored the checkout line filled with candy and magazines. Instead, she stopped in front of the baby section. She picked up powdered milk, put it back, picked a smaller, cheaper one. At the register, she hesitated, then added one more item, a small loaf of bread. That was all. When she came back out, she held the card out with both hands. "I only needed this for tonight," she said softly. "Someone else might need it more tomorrow." The Mafia boss felt his throat tighten, because in a world where everyone around him took without asking, the woman with nothing had taken the least. And that was the moment he began to cry. Stay with me until the end, because what he does next for this woman will change the course of both their lives. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Vincent Torino had built his empire on reading people. In 42 years of life, 25 spent climbing the ranks of the most dangerous family in Chicago. He'd learned that everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. Everyone could be bought, manipulated, or broken. That cold November evening, walking through downtown after a business meeting that had gone exactly as planned, Vincent should have felt satisfied. The deal he'd just closed would bring in millions. His organization controlled half the city's underground operations. Politicians answered his calls. Judges ruled in his favor. He owned more restaurants, clubs, and legitimate businesses than he could count. Yet something hollow echoed in his chest as he walked past the crowds of people hurrying home to their families. Vincent stopped outside Murphy's corner store, a family-owned shop he'd been protecting for 15 years. Old man Murphy paid his monthly fee without complaint, kept his mouth shut, and in return, no one bothered his business. It was a simple arrangement that worked perfectly. But tonight, something different caught Vincent's attention. Huddled against the brick wall beside the store sat a young woman, maybe 28 or 30, with a small child sleeping in her arms. The little girl couldn't have been older than 4, wrapped in a threadbare blanket that had seen better days. The woman's eyes were closed, but Vincent could see she wasn't sleeping. She was trying to disappear, trying to become invisible to the world that had forgotten her existence. A piece of cardboard lay beside them, with words scrawled in fading marker. "Lost everything in apartment fire. Please help. God bless." Vincent had walked past hundreds of homeless people over the years. Sometimes he'd have his driver toss a 20 out the window, more for his own conscience than any real desire to help. But something about this woman made him pause. Maybe it was the way she held her daughter. Not just protective, but gentle. Like the child was made of glass and might shatter if the world got too rough. Maybe it was the fact that despite clearly being exhausted, hungry, and cold, she'd positioned herself so the child got the warmest spot against the building. Or maybe it was the wedding ring she still wore, thin gold band that caught the streetlight. Whatever had happened to her family, whatever tragedy had brought her to this sidewalk, she hadn't given up on love entirely. Vincent approached slowly, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against wet concrete. The woman's eyes opened immediately, alert and cautious. Her arms tightened around the sleeping child. "Sorry," she said quickly, voice hoarse from the cold. "We're not causing any trouble. We can move along if you need us to." The automatic apology hit Vincent harder than any punch he'd ever taken. This woman was apologizing for existing, for taking up space on a public sidewalk, for being visible in her desperation. "What's your name?" Vincent asked, crouching down despite the protests of his $1,000 suit touching dirty pavement. She blinked, surprised by the question. Most people either ignored her completely or demanded she move along. No one asked her name. "Sarah," she said quietly. "Sarah Coleman. And this is my daughter Emma." Vincent studied Sarah's face in the dim streetlight. Intelligence lived behind the exhaustion. This wasn't someone who'd grown up on the streets. This was someone who'd fallen from somewhere higher and couldn't find a way back up. "How long have you been out here, Sarah?" Shame flickered across her features like a candle in the wind. 3 weeks, maybe 4. I've lost track of the days. Vincent felt something twist in his stomach. A month of sleeping on concrete. A month of begging for help that rarely came. A month of watching her daughter experience homelessness at an age when she should be worrying about toys and cartoons. "What happened?" Sarah looked down at Emma, brushing a strand of hair from the child's sleeping face. "Fire took our apartment building. Everything we owned. Insurance company found some loophole. Wouldn't pay out. I had savings, but hospital bills from Emma's emergency room visit after the fire ate through that pretty quick. Lost my job when I couldn't find childcare while apartment hunting. Been staying in shelters when there's space, but they're always full." Each sentence landed like a physical blow. Vincent had spent decades believing that people ended up homeless because they were lazy, addicted, or fundamentally flawed. But Sarah's story wasn't about personal failure. It was about a system designed to protect people like him while abandoning people like her. "You have family? Friends who could help?" Sarah's laugh was bitter and broken. "My parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. Emma's father took off when she was 6 months old. Haven't heard from him since. Friends disappear pretty quickly when you can't contribute to dinner plans or girls' nights out anymore." Vincent pulled out his wallet. But instead of cash, he removed something that made Sarah's eyes widen with confusion. His Black American Express card. No preset spending limit. Connected directly to accounts that held more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. "Take it," he said, holding the card between them like a bridge connecting 2 different worlds. Sarah stared at the black card, like Vincent had just handed her a loaded weapon. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over, seeing the raised numbers that seemed to shimmer under the streetlight. "I don't understand," she whispered, pulling Emma closer to her chest. "This has to be some kind of joke. People don't just give credit cards to strangers." Vincent's voice was steady, but something had shifted in his eyes, something Sarah couldn't quite identify. "No joke. 24 hours. Buy whatever you need, whatever you want. No questions asked." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. "What do you want from me? What's the catch? I don't have anything to give you. I don't have any way to pay this back." "No catch," Vincent said quietly. "Just curiosity." Around them, the city continued its relentless pace. Cars honked in traffic. People hurried past with their heads down, avoiding eye contact with the homeless woman and the well-dressed man crouched beside her. But in that small bubble of space against the brick wall, time seemed suspended. "Curiosity about what?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible above the street noise. Vincent studied her face, searching for something he wasn't sure he'd recognize if he found it. About what someone does when they have nothing left to lose. About whether desperation makes people selfish or if there's something else underneath. Sarah looked down at Emma, who stirred slightly in her sleep but didn't wake. The child's face was peaceful, innocent, unaware that her mother was holding what could be a lifeline or a trap. 24 hours, Vincent repeated. "Then I want the card back. That's all." Sarah's throat worked as she swallowed hard. Her practical mind screamed warnings. This was too good to be true. This was dangerous. This man could be anyone, want anything, expect payment in ways that would destroy what little dignity she had left. But Emma coughed in her sleep, a wet sound that had been getting worse over the past week. The child needed medicine, needed food that wasn't from dumpsters behind restaurants, needed a warm, safe place to rest without worrying about police or predators or the 100 other dangers that stalked the streets after dark. "Okay," Sarah said finally, her voice cracking. "But I need you to know something first. Whatever you think I am, Whatever you expect me to do with this, you're probably wrong. Vincent tilted his head slightly. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not going to disappear into the night with your money. I'm not going to buy drugs or alcohol or anything that'll hurt my daughter. And I'm not going to pretend this makes us friends or that I owe you anything beyond returning your card. Something that might have been respect flickered in Vincent's eyes. Fair enough. Sarah took the card with hands that shook so violently she almost dropped it. The plastic felt impossibly heavy, weighted with possibility and terror in equal measure. How do I know this is real? How do I know it won't be declined the second I try to use it? Vincent pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and showed her the screen. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw numbers that didn't make sense. More zeros than she could process. More money than existed in her entire understanding of the world. It's real, Vincent said simply. Use it. Sarah stood slowly, Emma still sleeping in her arms. Her legs were stiff from sitting on cold concrete for hours, and she swayed slightly as blood flow returned to her feet. Where are you going? Vincent asked. Grocery store, Sarah said, nodding toward Murphy's corner store. Emma needs medicine and food, real food. Vincent watched as Sarah walked the 30 feet to the store entrance, her movements careful and deliberate. She paused at the automatic doors, looked back at him once, then stepped inside. Through the large windows, Vincent could see everything. Sarah moved through the aisles like someone who'd forgotten how to shop. She picked up items, checked prices out of habit, put things back, picked them up again. In the pharmacy section, she spent 10 minutes reading labels on children's cold medicine. She selected the generic brand, not the name brand that cost 3 times as much. Vincent found himself leaning forward, watching her face as she made decisions about things he'd never had to consider. She moved to the food aisles next, passed the prepared meals section without stopping, skipped the expensive organic produce. Instead, she gathered basics: rice, beans, peanut butter, bread, milk for Emma, crackers that would keep without refrigeration. At one point, Sarah stopped in front of a display of children's vitamins. She picked up a bottle, read the label, then put it back. Picked it up again, put it back again. The internal debate played out across her face. Want versus need. Hope versus practicality. Vincent realized he was holding his breath. Sarah finally added the vitamins to her small basket and moved toward the checkout. The total came to $47.63. Less than Vincent spent on lunch most days. But then something unexpected happened. As the cashier rang up her items, Sarah noticed a donation box beside the register. Local food bank, the sign read. Help feed families in need. Sarah stared at the box for a long moment. Then she looked down at the credit card in her hand. Can I make a donation? She asked the cashier. Of course, hun. How much? Sarah hesitated, then said quietly, $50. The cashier processed the donation, and Sarah signed the receipt with hands that had stopped shaking. When she came back outside, she walked directly to Vincent and held out the card with both hands. Thank you, she said simply. Emma and I will remember this. Vincent took the card back, but his mind was reeling. You donated money to a food bank while you're homeless. Sarah adjusted Emma in her arms, the child finally starting to wake up. There are families with more kids than I have. Families with nowhere to go tonight. At least we have each other. Vincent stared at her, something breaking open in his chest that he'd kept locked away for decades. You spent less than $50 on yourself and then donated 50 more to help other people. It seemed like the right thing to do. Vincent thought about his own life, the restaurants where he spent hundreds of dollars on single meals, the cars that cost more than most people's houses, the suits in his closet that cost more than Sarah had just spent to feed her daughter for a week. When was the last time he'd done something simply because it was the right thing to do? Emma opened her eyes and looked up at Vincent with the curious, unguarded gaze that only children possessed. Mama, who's this? Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. This is a kind man who helped us tonight, sweetheart. Vincent felt his throat close. Kind. When was the last time anyone had called him kind? When was the last time he'd deserved the word? Sarah, he said, his voice rougher than intended. I want to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. She nodded, wariness creeping back into her expression. If I'd given you that card for a month instead of 24 hours, what would you have done differently? Sarah considered the question seriously. Found us a place to stay, something small, but safe. Gotten Emma into a preschool program. Maybe taken a shower that lasted longer than 5 minutes. She paused. Bought her a new stuffed animal. Hers got lost in the fire, and she cries about it sometimes when she thinks I'm not listening. Each word hit Vincent like a physical blow. Her dreams were so small, so reasonable, so heartbreakingly modest. A safe place to sleep, an education for her daughter, a toy to replace one lost in tragedy. Vincent pulled out his phone and made a call. Michael? It's me. I need you to book a suite at the Fairmont. Tonight. Indefinite stay. And I need you to call Dr. Martinez. Tell him I'm bringing a child who needs to be seen immediately. Sarah's eyes widened. What are you doing? Vincent ended the call and looked at her directly. What I should have done the moment I saw you sitting here. The drive to the Fairmont Hotel took 12 minutes through downtown Chicago traffic. Vincent sat in the front passenger seat of his black Mercedes, while Sarah and Emma occupied the back seat like refugees being transported to safety. Sarah hadn't spoken since they'd left the sidewalk outside Murphy's corner store. She clutched the small bag of groceries in one hand and held Emma with the other, her eyes darting between Vincent and the city lights streaming past the window. Emma had fallen back asleep, her small body finally relaxing for the first time in weeks. The warmth of the car's heated seats seemed to melt the tension from her tiny frame. Why are you doing this? Sarah asked suddenly, breaking the silence that had stretched between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. Vincent stared straight ahead at the traffic. I'm not sure I know anymore. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Sarah shifted in the leather seat, the luxury feeling foreign against her worn clothes. People like you don't help people like me, not without wanting something in return. So what is it? What do you want? Vincent's reflection caught in the side mirror, and for a moment he didn't recognize the man looking back at him. The face was the same, but something behind the eyes had changed in the past hour. You want to know what I want? Vincent turned to face her directly. I want to understand how you donated $50 to strangers when you didn't know where your next meal was coming from. I want to understand how you said thank you instead of asking for more. I want to understand how someone who's lost everything can still think about helping other people. Sarah's grip tightened on Emma. You think that makes me special? It doesn't. It makes me normal. Most people would have done the same thing. No, Vincent said quietly. They wouldn't have. The Mercedes pulled up to the Fairmont's circular driveway, where uniformed valets immediately approached the vehicle. Vincent had stayed at this hotel countless times for business meetings, celebrations, and the occasional need to impress someone important. But he'd never brought a homeless woman and her daughter through these golden doors. Sarah stared up at the building's gleaming facade, her mouth slightly open. I can't go in there. Look at me. Look at us. They'll call security. They won't, Vincent said with quiet certainty. Trust me. The valet opened Sarah's door, and she hesitated before stepping out onto red carpet that probably cost more per square foot than most people earned in a week. Emma stirred in her arms, blinking sleepy eyes at the bright lights and marble columns. Inside the lobby, heads turned, not with disgust or judgment, but with curiosity. Vincent's presence commanded a certain respect in establishments like this, and if he was with these people, then these people mattered. The desk clerk, a polished young man named Jonathan, recognized Vincent immediately. Mr. Torino, your suite is ready. Penthouse level, as requested. Thank you. And Dr. Martinez? Already on his way up, sir. Should arrive within the hour. Sarah looked between Vincent and the clerk with growing confusion. Doctor? Why do we need a doctor? Emma's been coughing, Vincent said simply. Children shouldn't have to be sick and homeless at the same time. The elevator ride to the penthouse took 43 seconds. Sarah counted every one of them, her anxiety building with each floor they passed. When the doors opened, she stepped into a space larger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline. A full kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances gleamed under soft lighting. 2 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. A living room with furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Emma's eyes went wide as she took in the space. "Mama, is this our house now?" Sarah's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. We're just visiting." "Actually," Vincent said, removing his coat and hanging it in a closet larger than the shelter bed Sarah and Emma had been sharing. "You're staying, both of you, for as long as you need." Sarah set down her grocery bag and turned to face him directly. "Stop. Just stop. I need you to tell me what this really is. Are you some kind of criminal? Are you expecting payment? Are you planning to hurt us?" The directness of her questions hit Vincent like cold water. In his world, people danced around topics, spoke in code, negotiated through intermediaries. Sarah's blunt honesty was both refreshing and unsettling. "I am a criminal," Vincent said, matching her directness. "I run an organization that does things most people would consider illegal. I've hurt people. I've made decisions that destroyed lives. I've spent 25 years believing that everyone is selfish and that kindness is weakness." Sarah's arms instinctively tightened around Emma. "And now? Now I've met someone who proved me wrong about everything." Before Sarah could respond, there was a knock at the door. Vincent opened it to reveal Dr. Martinez, a distinguished man in his 60s carrying a medical bag that had seen decades of house calls. "Vincent," Dr. Martinez said warmly, "you mentioned a child who needed attention? Emma Coleman, 4 years old. She's been living on the streets for a month. Persistent cough, possible upper respiratory infection." Dr. Martinez's expression shifted to professional concern as he approached Sarah and Emma. "Hello there, young lady. I'm Dr. Martinez. Would it be okay if I listened to your chest with my stethoscope?" Emma looked to her mother for permission. Sarah nodded, though her posture remained defensive. For the next 20 minutes, Dr. Martinez conducted a thorough examination while Vincent watched from across the room. The doctor's gentle manner gradually put Emma at ease, and soon she was giggling as he made funny faces while checking her ears. "Mild bronchitis," Dr. Martinez announced when he finished. "Nothing serious, but it needs treatment. I'll prescribe antibiotics and an inhaler for the cough. With proper rest and nutrition, she'll be fine in a week or 2. He pulled Vincent aside while Sarah helped Emma put her shirt back on. "That child has been malnourished for some time. Not severely, but consistently. Her mother's done a remarkable job protecting her, but they both need consistent meals and safe shelter." Vincent nodded. "They'll have both." Dr. Martinez studied Vincent's face with the keen eye of someone who'd known him for 15 years. "This isn't like you, Vincent. What's changed?" Vincent looked across the room where Sarah was whispering something that made Emma laugh. "Everything." After Dr. Martinez left, Vincent ordered room service. Not the elaborate multi-course meals he usually preferred, but simple food that a 4-year-old would enjoy. Chicken soup, grilled cheese sandwiches, fresh fruit, and chocolate milk. While they waited for the food to arrive, Vincent showed Sarah and Emma around the suite. Emma was fascinated by everything, especially the deep bathtub with jets and the television that was larger than some apartment walls. "Can I take a bath, Mama?" Emma asked, her voice small with hope. Sarah looked at Vincent questioningly. He nodded toward the bathroom. "There are fresh towels and soap. Take your time." As Sarah ran water for Emma's bath, Vincent sat alone in the living room, staring out at the city lights. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from associates, reminders of meetings, updates on various business operations. For the first time in his adult life, he ignored them all. When Sarah emerged from the bathroom 30 minutes later, she looked transformed. Her hair was clean and pulled back. Her face, scrubbed free of weeks of street grime, revealed features that were younger and more refined than Vincent had initially realized. She'd changed into a hotel bathrobe, having hand-washed her clothes in the sink. Emma fell asleep in the tub, she said quietly. I've never seen her so relaxed. Vincent gestured to the couch. Sit. The food should be here soon. Sarah perched on the edge of the cushions, still ready to bolt if necessary. You said you're a criminal. What kind? Vincent considered how much truth she could handle. I run a family business. We provide protection, resolve disputes, facilitate certain transactions. Some of it operates outside traditional legal boundaries. You're in the Mafia. That's not a word we typically use, but yes. Sarah absorbed this information with surprising calm. Are you dangerous? To most people, yes. To me and Emma? Vincent met her eyes, directly. Never. Room service arrived as Emma wandered out of the bathroom, drowning in a hotel bathrobe that dragged behind her like a royal train. Her hair was damp and curly, her cheeks pink from the warm water. The three of them sat around the dining table, an unlikely family sharing a meal in a penthouse suite. Emma ate with the focused intensity of someone who'd gone hungry too many times, while Sarah picked at her food, still unable to fully believe the situation was real. Mama, Emma said around a mouthful of grilled cheese, can we stay here forever? Sarah's smile was gentle but sad. No, sweetheart. This is temporary. But isn't it nice for tonight? Emma nodded enthusiastically. It's like a castle, and Vincent is like a king. Vincent felt something crack in his chest. When was the last time a child had looked at him with anything other than fear? When was the last time anyone had seen him as a protector instead of a threat? After dinner, Sarah tucked Emma into the master bedroom's king-sized bed, surrounding her with pillows to keep her from rolling off. The child fell asleep within minutes, her small body finally able to relax completely. Sarah and Vincent sat in the living room, the city sprawling below them like a glittering map of possibilities and problems. Tomorrow, Vincent said, we're going apartment hunting. Sarah shook her head. I can't afford an apartment. I don't have a job, no references, no security deposit. No landlord is going to rent to someone like me. You won't be renting. You'll be buying. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. With what money? I have $37 to my name. Vincent pulled out his checkbook, wrote something quickly, and handed her the check. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the amount. $100,000. This isn't a loan, Vincent said. It's not charity. It's an investment in something I thought didn't exist anymore. Sarah stared at the check until the numbers blurred. I don't understand what's happening. Yesterday I was begging for spare change, and now you're giving me enough money to change our entire lives. Why? Vincent was quiet for a long moment, watching the city lights twinkle like fallen stars. Because you reminded me that goodness still exists. Because you showed me that my father was wrong about everything. Because you made a choice that saved something in me I thought was dead. Sarah wiped tears from her cheeks. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not as good as you think I am? Then you'll still be better than anyone else I've ever known. They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and real estate agents and the complicated process of rebuilding a life from nothing. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, Sarah and Emma were safe, and for the first time in decades, Vincent Torino felt like he might be becoming the man he was always supposed to be. The next morning, Vincent woke before dawn for the first time in years without checking his phone. No urgent messages from lieutenants. No crisis demanding immediate attention. Just silence and the soft sound of a child's breathing from the next room. He found Sarah standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, still wearing the hotel bathrobe, watching the sunrise paint Chicago's skyline in shades of gold and amber. Emma slept peacefully in the massive bed behind them, surrounded by more pillows than she'd probably seen in her entire life. Couldn't sleep either? Vincent asked quietly. Sarah turned, and he saw something different in her eyes. Not just exhaustion or weariness, but a flicker of something that looked almost like hope. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up back on that sidewalk, she admitted. That none of this is real. Vincent poured 2 cups of coffee from the Sweets premium machine, handing one to Sarah. She wrapped both hands around the warm ceramic, inhaling the rich aroma like it was the most precious thing in the world. "It's real," Vincent said. "All of it." They stood in comfortable silence as the city awakened below them. Vincent found himself studying Sarah's reflection in the window, trying to understand how someone who'd lost everything could still carry herself with such quiet dignity. His phone buzzed insistently on the marble counter, then again and again. Sarah glanced toward the sound. "You should answer that. It might be important." Vincent didn't move. Nothing's more important than this moment. The words surprised them both. Vincent had built his entire empire on the principle that business always came first. Every decision filtered through profit margins and strategic advantage. Every relationship served a purpose in the larger machinery of his organization. But standing there with Sarah, watching his city wake up while Emma slept safely in the next room, Vincent realized something had fundamentally shifted inside him. The hollow echo in his chest had been replaced by something warmer, more solid. "I need to tell you something," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "About yesterday. About the donation." Vincent waited, sensing the importance of whatever she was about to reveal. "It wasn't because I'm some saint. It wasn't because I'm naturally generous or good." Sarah's grip tightened on the coffee cup. "I donated that money because I was terrified." "Terrified of what?" "Of having too much when other people had nothing. Of becoming comfortable with luxury while Emma and I had been sleeping on concrete just hours before." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "I was afraid that if I kept all that money, even for one day, I might forget what it felt like to have nothing. And if I forgot that, I might stop caring about people who are still there." Vincent felt something break open in his chest. Here was a woman who'd been given unlimited access to wealth, and her greatest fear wasn't losing it, but becoming disconnected from those who still suffered. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. Vincent learned that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or business empires, but in the courage to choose compassion when the world has given you every reason to be bitter. Sarah's simple act of generosity didn't just change 2 lives that night. It proved that goodness exists even in the darkest places, waiting for someone brave enough to believe in it again.